Okay, we're ready to go.
Okay. Did the call to order come through? No. No?
Oh,
So 9:26, we called the meeting to order. I have to do the territorial land acknowledgement. Just hang on.
Just interrupt her for a moment.
Gail, can I interrupt for one moment? I've got two more people that have just come on.
You've got two more people just came on, Gail.
Okay. We have two more on. Susan, are you going to
Yes,
get
I'm
them?
just admitting them. Good morning, caller. Can I get your name, please?
It's Chris Bryan, Bryan.
Thank you, Chris. I'm going to put you on mute.
Make sure you get his number.
Good morning, caller. Can I get your name, please?
Carrie
Last name, Carrie?
Barlow.
Okay, Carrie, I'm going to put you on mute. Thank you, Gail. We're ready to go.
Okay. I'll read the territorial land acknowledgement. Before our meeting gets underway, I would like to formally recognize the traditional keepers of this land, and specifically our neighbors of the Alderville First Nation, with a formal territorial acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the Township of Alnwick-Haldeman is located on the Mississauga Anishinaabeg territory and is the traditional territory of the Mississauga Anishinaabeg. The Township of Alnwick-Haldeman respectfully acknowledges that the Mississauga Nation are the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. Thank you. I'll lose that. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof, council? Seeing none. Approval of the agenda is circulated. Be it resolved that the municipal planning meeting agenda of Thursday, May 27th, 21 be approved as circulated. Could I have a mover, please?
I'll move. Councillor Phillip.
Moved by Councillor Phillip and second by Deputy Mayor Gibson. Okay. Since people can't see, or can they see now with the live, Susan, can I just call for the vote by hand? If everybody can, oh, some are on phones. I'll call it out. Deputy Mayor Gibson?
Yay.
Councillor Phillip?
Yay.
Councillor Booth?
Yay.
Councillor Hogg?
Yay.
And myself in favor, that's carried. Item 5, approval of the minutes of April 22nd. Be it resolved that the municipal planning meeting minutes of April 22nd, 21 be approved. Unless somebody has something, could I please?
I'll move that.
Councillor Phillip.
Phillip.
Second, Councillor Booth.
Councillor Booth.
Thank you. Any comments from the minutes by council? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Deputy Mayor Gibson?
Yay.
Councillor Phillip?
Yay.
Councillor Booth?
Yay.
Councillor Hogg?
Yay.
And myself, that's carried. Item 6 is the motion to adjourn to Land Division Committee of Adjustment. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Alnwick-Haldeman, being a Land Division Committee of Adjustment, adjourn to a Land Division Committee of Adjustment meeting for the purpose of hearing consent applications at 9:31. Have a mover, please.
I'll make that motion, Councillor Hogg.
Second,
I'll
Councillor
second
Booth.
that, Councillor Booth.
Thank you, and I'll call for the vote. Deputy Mayor Gibson,
Yay.
Councillor Phillip,
Yay.
Councillor Booth,
Yay.
Councillor Hogg,
Yay.
and myself, that's carried. So before we start the consents, I have a little reading I have to do. Because this is a hearing under the Planning Act when the committee gets to the applications for consideration. Each application will be brought up in the order listed on the agenda with an opportunity for public input given prior to discussion and consideration by the committee. The public will be asked if they wish to make any comment. Please state your name and that you would like to make comments regarding this application. Once the chair has recognized you, you may be able to speak. If anyone other than the applicant wishes to receive a copy of one of the notices of decision, please submit a written request for notice of council's decision to the senior planner and which decision you would like a copy of, and it will be sent to you. Thank you. So our first consent application is a lot line adjustment. It's Mark Towers, agent Susan Patterson, AH05 2021, concession 3, part of lot 4, geographic Haldeman, and it's a lot addition. So Jennifer?
Certainly, through you, Mayor Latchford. This is an application submitted by Susan Patterson on behalf of Mark Towers for a property located in part of Lot 4, Concession 3, geographic Haldeman. The property has frontage on Shelter Valley Road. Mr. Towers owns a property immediately adjacent to another property that the couple owns, and what the proposal is to sever the southern 13.5 hectares off of the subject property and add that to an adjacent property under their ownership. That would have a retained lot with a lot area of 5.7 hectares. The proposed lot addition lands don't have any frontage. Both the retained lot and the benefiting or recipient lot will have frontage on Shelter Valley Road. The subject property is heavily forested and located on the south side of Shelter Valley Road. There's one cleared area sort of in the center of the property, and the cleared area encompasses lands on both the proposed severed parcel and the benefiting parcel. So there's a farm field that traverses the common property line. The benefiting property is also heavily forested. However, the northern third of the property has been cleared, and it is this area in which there is a single detached dwelling on the benefiting or recipient property. There are 3 pipelines which cross the subject property, and the northern boundary of the pipeline right-of-way will be the proposed new lot line for the lands to be added to the adjacent property to the east. Shelter Valley Creek meanders through the property with natural vegetation on both sides. Surrounding land uses are a combination of rural, agricultural, and rural residential uses, as well as aggregate uses. Shelter Valley Aggregates is located southwest of the subject property. There's an unopened road allowance between lots 4 and 5, concession 3, which runs between the subject property and Shelter Valley Aggregates. So this property has been designated rural environmental protection and aggregate resource in the Township of Alnwick-Haldeman official plan. Most of the land is located within the rural designation, while the environmental protection lands are associated with the water course that goes through the property. The PPS generally permits this type of development. A new lot is not being created. What we have is a large section of rural lands being added to another rural property. In their May 10th comments, Lower Trent Conservation identified the water course and associated wetlands and a small unevaluated wetland in the western corner of the benefiting property. The Lower Trent doesn't have any concerns with this application because no new development lands are being proposed. So while there's a lot, there is a lot addition or a lot line adjustment, no new developable lot is being created. The benefiting parcel is already developed, and the recipient or the retained parcel has a building envelope outside of any regulated areas or areas subject to environmental features. The southern portion of the proposed severed parcel has been designated aggregate resource on Schedule A to the township's official plan, and that designation is intended to protect aggregate resources for future extraction. And normally we don't permit severances within an aggregate resource area or within 300 meters because we don't want to limit the potential of the aggregate potential of that property. However, in this case, the entirety of the aggregate resource is just being transferred to another property. So there's no increase in incompatibility at all. The same area will still be designated resource, and there will be no opportunity for development within that area. And while Shelter Valley Creek is a key hydrologic feature under the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, and normally development within 120 meters of a key hydrologic feature requires the completion of a hydrologic evaluation. Because this lot will not result in a new developable lot, the hydrologic evaluation is not required. Okay, so the application is, the property is not located on the Oak Ridges Moraine, so the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan does not affect the property. Northumberland County reviewed the application indicating that the lands are located in the rural areas, which permits rural land uses, no new lots being created. The county OP policies permit the proposal. This proposal is also consistent with the Township of Alnwick-Haldeman official plan. The property is designated rural environmental protection and aggregate resource as discussed earlier. The proposed lot addition would result in the creation, as I said, of a 0.57 hectare retained lot and a 34.3, now these are approximate, hectare resultant or benefiting lot. That's the 13 hectares of severed land plus the 21.3 hectares on the benefiting property. The zoning bylaw for the township, the subject property is and benefiting parcel are zoned rural and environmentally sensitive areas overlay on the Township of Alnwick-Haldeman zoning bylaw. The proposed lot size is consistent. The minimum lot size for the rural zone is 5 hectares. So the retained lot will meet that requirement, and the 34.3 hectare benefiting or resultant lot will also comply with those requirements. The environmentally sensitive areas overlay will remain on the property. There's no change in zoning required. The application was circulated and reviewed. The manager of public works indicated that both the benefiting and subject parcel have property on Shelter Valley Road. There is an entrance on the retained lot and on the benefiting property. Northumberland County had no objections. Lower Trent Conservation had no objection to the application. Public notice was circulated to all registered landowners within 60 meters of the property, and a sign was posted on the property. No comments have been received. The proposed lot addition will add land to a developed rural lot and retained lot. No new developable lots are being created. The application maintains the intent of the Township of Alnwick-Haldeman official plan, is consistent with the provincial policy statement. A zoning bylaw amendment is not required, and I am recommending approval of the application.
Thanks, Jennifer. Is there any comments from Susan Patterson, the agent? Hearing none.
Excuse me, through you, Mayor Latchford.
Okay, I'm cutting in and out. I'm going to get Yolanda to come up and have a look at my computer.
Okay, through you, Mayor Latchford. I just want to confirm, Susan, that when the that you have unmuted Susan Patterson when the mayor asked for comments. Sorry, Susan, you were muted.
Sorry, no, she's not unmuted. Susan Patterson, can you unmute? I'm not able to unmute her.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to know if she had any further comments, so we'll move on. Any comments or concerns from the public? I'll have to go through you, Susan.
No, I'm not seeing anybody.
Okay.
Oh.
Any?
I do have one more person in the waiting room.
Okay.
I'm going to admit them in. Good morning. Good morning, caller. Can I get your name, please?
Barlow.
It's Carrie again.
Yeah, sorry, I have bad service.
Okay.
So do I. So do
All right,
I.
I'm going to mute you again, Carrie.
Any comments from council? Okay. So there's no there aren't any comments from anyone, and I'll read this recommendation. Do you want to read the recommendation to approve, Jennifer, or do you want me to the motion?
If you would like me to read it, I can read it.
Please do, because I'm cutting in and out.
Okay. The recommendation is that application AH05/2021 by Mark Towers, agent Susan Patterson, to sever a parcel of land for lot addition purposes in part of Lot 4, Concession 3, Geographic Township of Haldeman is hereby approved subject to the following conditions. 1, that a registered survey for the severed parcel be submitted to the township. 2, further to the printed plan of survey, a closed polygon vector file of the part boundaries shown on the reference plan is to be provided in spatially referenced Autodesk DWG Windows readable format to the satisfaction of the township. It is recommended that the applicant's Ontario Land Surveyor consult with the Northumberland County GIS section to confirm acceptable standards and formatting. 3, that a draft transfer for the severed parcel be submitted to the township. 4, that the tax account for the subject property be paid up to date. 5, that the severed parcel be deeded as a lot addition to the recipient property, and that the applicant's lawyer submit an undertaking to register a consolidation on title, giving effect to the lot addition. And 6, that the applicant's lawyer submit a legal opinion verifying that the lot addition lands will merge on title with the recipient parcel under the Planning Act.
Thank you. Could I have a mover, please? With those recommendations?
Councillor Phillip will move.
Second?
Councillor Hogg will second.
Okay, thank you. I'll call for the vote. Deputy Mayor Gibson?
Yay.
Councillor Phillip?
Yay.
Councillor Booth?
Yay.
Councillor Hogg?
Yay.
Councillor Hogg?
Yay.
Oh, sorry, and myself, that's carried. Our next application is Kenneth R. Barlow. There's two. One is AH06-2021, and we'll do that one first. And then there's AH7-2021. So I'll get Jennifer to take us through that one, those ones as well.
Certainly, through you, Mayor Latchford. I'll give a summary of both of the applications at the same time because they apply to the same land. But then
Yes,
when
that's
we
fine.
go to do approvals and decisions, we'll do two separate decisions.
Yes.
Okay, this application is actually very close to the previous application. The property is located in part of Lot 5, Concession 4, Geographic Township of Haldeman. The property is located between 3218 Shelter Valley Road and 3264 Shelter Valley Road. It's on the north side of Shelter Valley Road. The purpose of the two applications are to create 2.4 hectare rural residential lots from an existing 36 hectare property on the north side of Shelter Valley Road. The application is submitted concurrently with both applications AH06 and AH07 are submitted concurrently. The properties, each of the severed lots would have about 45 meters of frontage, just over, and a depth of 88.51 meters. The 36 hectare subject property is located on the north side of Shelter Valley Road, approximately 1.7 kilometers from the Alnwick-Haldeman Township and Crammy Township municipal border. The property is currently used for agricultural purposes with hayfields, and the northern half of the property is covered with mature forest. A water course flows through the northeast corner of the forested area and into a pond on an adjacent property. There's a tarp building on the property which is used for hay storage. Surrounding land uses are a combination of agricultural and rural residential uses. There are large tracts of agricultural land located to the southeast of the subject property, and a number of rural residential lots have been created on both sides of Shelter Valley Road, north and east of the subject property. The Oak Ridges Moraine covers the northern 3/4 of the property. However, the southern portion and that portion on which the proposed severed lots are located outside of the Oak Ridges Moraine. The land on which the proposed severed lots are located is currently being used as a hayfield. And they're located immediately adjacent to between rural residential uses. The subject property is designated Rural Aggregate Resource and Oak Ridges Moraine Natural Core Area. The Oak Ridges Moraine zone applies to the northern portion. There is a narrow strip of aggregate resource that runs through this property. It's a very narrow strip, and it runs through the subject property as well as all of the rural residential uses that have been created on fronting on Shelter Valley Road. So the commercial viability or extraction viability of that aggregate resource has already been compromised with the creation of the previous severances. And it's a very narrow strip of aggregate resource land. So the rural policies of the provincial policy statement permit limited residential development, which is what is proposed with these applications. In their May 11th comments, Lower Trent Conservation identified the water course that runs through the northern portion of the property, along with multiple unevaluated wetlands in that same area. There are no regulated features on the proposed severed lots. And while the water course and unevaluated wetlands are key hydrologic features, the lots are located further than 120 meters from the hydrologic features. They're located approximately 380 meters, so well beyond the area of the key hydrologic features. Lower Trent also commented that while floodplain mapping is not available for the water course, given the distance between the water course and the proposed severed lots, that there is sufficient room to address any flooding issues. Okay. The narrow strip of land, which I referred to earlier, which is the aggregate resource area, it's located approximately 75 meters north of Shelter Valley Road and encompasses an area of 1.5 hectares. But as I mentioned earlier, the commercial extraction of this resource has already been sterilized by other rural residential uses in the area. So the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement. And while part of the subject property is located on the Oak Ridges Moraine or in the Oak Ridges Moraine, the proposed severed lots are located outside. So the severances are consistent with the Oak Ridges Moraine conservation policy. Northumberland County reviewed the official plan and indicated that the lands are designated rural in the Northumberland County official plan, and that their policies do permit limited residential development in accordance, new lots in accordance with the policies of the local municipality. The subject property is designated rural and aggregate resources in the township's official plan and that on Schedule A, and Oak Ridges Marine Natural Core Area on Schedule C5. As discussed, the aggregate resource has already been sterilized. The rural designation applies to those lands on which the proposed severances are located. The official plan policies do permit limited residential development in the rural designation, provided lots have frontage on a maintained year-round maintained municipal road, which in this case is Shelter Valley Road. A plan of subdivision isn't required because only 2 lots are being created. The PPS and the official plan both require lots to be of an appropriate size to accommodate the required private services. The application was reviewed by Northumberland County Inspection Services, who confirmed that they have no objection with or concerns with the proposed application. Official plan policies require landowners to have owned land for a minimum of 3 years in order to be eligible. The owners purchased the property in 2008. Official plan policies permit a maximum of 2 lots from a property that is less than 36 hectares as the property existed in 1990. And while there have been previous severances from this property, they were created prior to 1990. So the application is consistent with the policies in the township's official plan. The zoning bylaw, that's the portion of the subject property on which this proposed severed lots are located, is zoned rural in the township's zoning bylaw. The minimum lot size for the rural zone is 0.4 hectares. Therefore, both of the proposed severed lots would have to be rezoned to the rural residential zone, which permits a single detached dwelling on a lot, on a 0.4 hectare lot. With this application, the retained lot will only have 28 meters of frontage on Shelter Valley Road. The rural zone requires a minimum of 60 meters of frontage, and as such, that portion of the retained land located in the rural zone will have to be rezoned to a rural residential exception zone, recognizing the reduced lot frontage. 28-meter frontage would be sufficient to accommodate an entrance onto the retained land and access for farm vehicles. However, if somebody wants to build on that property, they're going to have to build a longer driveway and to get back up into the property. There is also an unopened road allowance on the that forms the eastern boundary of the subject property, which, subject to council approval, could be upgraded should the owner decide to, at some point, to access the property that way. Again, there is a process for opening up an unopened road allowance. Any work has to be undertaken through an agreement with the municipality. It has to be designed by an engineer, and securities are required. So it is a process. They can't just go and open up a road allowance. It does require council approval. The remainder of the property is zoned Oak Ridges Marine Environmental and would remain subject to the Oak Ridges Marine zoning. The agency circulation was undertaken. The application was reviewed by the manager of public works, who did a site visit and confirmed that there's sufficient visibility for entrances on Shelter Valley Road at a location to be determined by the manager of public works. Lower Trent commented, and their comments were focused on the environmental features in the northeast corner, which have no impact on the proposed new lots. County of Northumberland reviewed the application and had no objections or concerns with the application. Alderville First Nation responded that Alderville First Nations does not have any issues with these land severances. Public circulation was undertaken on May 7th and a sign was posted on the property. No public comments have been received. So these applications would see the creation of 2.4 hectare lots on the north side of Shelter Valley Road. They would be required to be rezoned, as would a portion of the retained lot. While there are are key hydrologic features identified on the property. They are located beyond the 120-meter setback from a key hydrologic feature. So the application is consistent with, consistent with the provincial policy statement, maintains the intent of the township and county official plans. And the recommendation is that the applications be approved.
Thanks, Jennifer. Are there any comments from Mr. or Mrs. Barlow or any concerns? No. Any
And are you
questions?
able to unmute it all?
I don't see that anyone is unmuted to speak.
Okay.
Any comments or questions from the public? Seeing none. Council, do you have any comments or questions? No? Okay. So we'll let Jennifer read each recommendation since these ones are the same except for the locations. If you do the recommendations, the motion, Jennifer.
Okay.
Mover. And we'll do, as you say, one at a time.
Okay, this is for application, sorry, through you, Mayor Latchford. This is for application AH06-2021. The recommendation is that application AH06-2021 by Kenneth Barlow to sever a parcel of land for the creation of a new vacant rural residential lot in part of Lot 5, Concession 4, Geographic Township of Haldeman is hereby approved subject to the following conditions. 1, that a registered survey for the severed parcel be submitted to the township. 2, further to the printed plan of survey, a closed polygon vector file of the part boundaries shown on the reference plan is to be provided in spatially referenced Autodesk DWG Windows readable format to the satisfaction of the township. It is recommended that the applicant's Ontario land surveyor consult with the County of Northumberland GIS section to confirm acceptable standards and formatting. 3, that a draft transfer for the severed parcel be submitted to the township. 4, that a draft transfer for the severed parcel be, sorry, I had 2 condition 3s. 4, that the tax account for the subject property be paid up to date. 5, that a zoning bylaw amendment be in effect for the severed and retained parcels pursuant to the Planning Act. 6, that the $10,205.70 development charge for the severed parcel be paid to the Township of Alnwick-Haldeman. And 7, that the $1,500 cash in lieu of parkland fees be paid to the Township of Alnwick-Haldeman.
Thank you. Call for the motion, Council. Can I have a mover, please?
Councillor
Make that
Phillip will
motion.
move.
Councillor Booth, second. Deputy
Councillor
Mayor
Phillip.
Gibson.
Sure.
Okay. I thought I saw Deputy Mayor's hand up. Okay,
I'm happy to second that, but I think Councillor Phillip had his hand up, but I'm happy to second that.
That's okay. That's
That's
okay.
okay. You were close anyways. Okay, I'll call for the vote. Deputy Mayor Gibson,
Yay.
Yay.
Councillor Phillip,
Yay.
Councillor Booth,
Yay.
Councillor Hogg,
Yay.
and myself, that is carried. And the next one, Jennifer, Kenneth R. Barlow, AH07-2021. If you wish
Through you,
to-
Mayor Latchford, the recommendation is that application AH07/2021 by Kenneth Barlow to sever a parcel of land for the creation of a new vacant rural residential lot in part of Lot 5, Concession 4, Geographic Township of Haldeman is hereby approved subject to the following conditions. That a registered survey for the severed parcel be submitted to the township. 2, further to the printed plan of survey, a closed polygon vector file of the part boundaries shown on the reference plan is to be provided in spatially referenced Autodesk DWG Windows readable format to the satisfaction of the township. It is recommended that the applicant's Ontario land surveyor consult with the County of Northumberland GIS section to confirm acceptable standards and formatting. 3, that a draft transfer for the severed parcel be submitted to the township. 4, that the tax account for the subject property be paid up to date. 5, that a zoning bylaw amendment be in effect for the severed and retained parcel pursuant to the Planning Act. 6, that the $10,205.70 development charge for the severed lot be paid to the Township of Alnwick-Alderman. And 7, that the $1,500 cash in lieu of parkland fee be paid to the Township of Alnwick-Alderman.
Thank you. Could I have the mover, please?
Counselor Philip will move.
Second?
Councillor Hogg will second.
Thank you. I'll call for the vote. Deputy Mayor Gibson,
Yay.
Councillor Phillip,
Yay.
Councillor Hogg,
Yay.
Councillor Booth,
Yay.
and myself. That AH07 is carried. Moving on, we have Angela Cook and Christiane Cook. The agent is Jesse Henderson for 2 severances, AH08 and AH09, 2021. And I imagine, Jennifer, you'll handle them the same way since they're coming off the same properties.
Through you, Mayor Latchford, that's correct. We'll go through the applications together because the same policies apply, but separate decisions will be made for each application. Applications AH08 2021 and AH09 2021 are applied to land owned by Angela Sherry Cook and Kirsty Ann Faith Cook, agent Jesse Henderson. The lands are located in part of Lot 10, Concession 1, geographic Alnwick. And the purpose of each application is to sever 2 parcels of land for the creation of vacant rural residential lots fronting on County Road 18. The property address is actually 11088 First Line because the property is located between the First Line and County Road 18. It goes the full width of the concession, but the lots are being created on County Road 18. Okay, the property, it's a large property. It's a 44-hectare subject property located in the northern portion of the municipality. As mentioned, it has frontage on both First Line on the south and County Road 18 to the north. The southern quarter of the property is located on the Oak Ridges Moraine. A water course flows through the center of the property, and Lower Trent Conservation has identified a large unevaluated wetland associated with that water course. There's also a small drainage feature that's running through the northeastern portion of the corner of the property that flows southward and connects to the larger water courses. Large portions of the subject property are under agricultural cultivation, and the property is developed with a single detached dwelling and unoccupied livestock barn, which are located south of the water course and are accessed via First Line. There's a licensed aggregate operation located adjacent to the southeast corner of the property, and there is a single detached dwelling on a property that appears to in the southeast corner of the property that appears to have also been severed from the property. And it's developed with a single detached dwelling. Alderville First Nation boundary forms the eastern boundary of the subject property, and surrounding land uses are predominantly larger agricultural and rural properties with some rural residential lots. There are a few commercial properties located on Roseneath Landing Road on lands within Alderville First Nation. There is a small barn identified east of the subject property, and the applicant has confirmed with the owner of the barn that it is used for storage only. The subject property has been designated Rural Environmental Protection on Schedule A to the official plan, and Oak Ridges Moraine Countryside Rural and Oak Ridges Moraine Natural Linkage on Schedule C to the official plan. That portion of the property that the applications apply to is on the northern portion, and that is within that area that has been designated rural. The provincial policy statement does allow for limited development within rural areas, subject to complying with some other policies. One of the policies that there are things that it must address is minimum distance separation calculations. And there is a barn located, excuse me, there's a mistake in my report. It says compliance with MDS on page 3 of the report. It says that there are no barns identified within 7. Oh, probably aren't. There is a barn located on the subject property, and we did do I did an MDS calculation for that barn, and it was determined that the proposed severed lot is located outside of the MDS setback. I apologize for the mistake in the report, but an MDS calculation was undertaken. Given the depth of this property, it's, I believe, over 1 kilometer in depth. So the distance between the barn and the proposed lots is significant. The water course and wetlands are considered key hydrologic features. However, the lot is located outside of the required 120 meter area of influence. The drainage feature that's running through the northeastern corner of the property is not considered a key hydrologic feature. And as such, development can be located within 120 meters provided and without the completion of a hydrologic evaluation. It is regulated by Lower Trent, and Lower Trent commented that any development or site alteration within 15 meters of the feature will require a Lower Trent conservation permit. And the licensed aggregate operation is located east of the subject property at 1118 First Line Road, and it's located approximately 1,200 meters from the proposed severed lot. So it's quite a distance, even though, given the depth of this lot from the first line all the way up to County Road 18, even though the aggregate operation is located adjacent to the subject property, it's located 1,200 meters over 1 kilometer from the proposed severed lots. And while the Oak Ridges Moraine does cover a portion of the property, the proposed severed lots are located on lands outside of the Oak Ridges Moraine. The lands are designated rural in the Northumberland County Official Plan, and the Northumberland County Official Plan permits the creation of lots subject to being eligible under the local official plan. The township's official plan does permit a limited residential development in the rural area, subject to compliance with the policies, which require frontage on a year-round municipally maintained road, which in this case is County Road 18, and the retained lot will have frontage both on County Road 18 and the first line. The PPS and official plan both require that lots be appropriately sized to accommodate private services. Northumberland County Inspection Services reviewed the application and confirmed that they have no concerns with the application. The official plan for the township contains policies which are intended to protect mineral and aggregate resources. And there is a licensed aggregate operation located southeast of the proposed severed lots. The official plan policies state that a new sensitive land use should not be permitted within 300 meters of the designated aggregate lands. The proposed severed lots, as I mentioned, are 1,200 meters from the existing aggregate operation. So the application is consistent with the township's official plan policies. The subject property is zoned rural and environmentally sensitive areas on Schedule A, and Oak Ridges Moraine Countryside and Oak Ridges Moraine Plan Review on Schedule B. That portion of the area on which the lots are created is zoned rural, which permits development on lots with a minimum lot size of 5 hectares. The proposed 4 hectare severed lots are smaller and would need to be rezoned to the rural residential zone, which permits a single detached dwelling on a 0.4 hectare lot. An agency circulation was undertaken. The manager of Public Works commented that he has no concerns because the new lots will have frontage on County Road 18. Lower Trent commented on the water course and the wetlands in the center of the property. However, they're outside of the influence area for the key hydrologic features. Northumberland County commented that they have no concerns. Northumberland County Transportation Services requested road widening and that the following condition be included in the notice of decision: that the applicant shall lay out and dedicate to the County of Northumberland a strip of land ensuring 15 meters, 50 feet from the center line of County Road 18 along the frontage of the severed and retained portion for road widening purposes. Alderville First Nation commented that they had no issues with the severances. Public circulation was undertaken on May 7th and no public comments have been received. So the creation of these 2.4 hectare vacant rural residential lots with frontage on County Road 18, they are consistent with the provincial policy statement and the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe and the Oak Ridges Marine Conservation Plan, and maintain the intent of the Northumberland County Official Plan and the Township of Alnwick-Haldeman Official Plan. The recommendation is that the applications be approved, subject to the conditions outlined in the report.
Thanks, Jennifer. Any comments from Mr. Henderson, the agent? Is there anything further you'd like to add? Seeing nothing, I don't hear him. Any comments or concerns from the public? Seeing none. Council, do you have any comments, questions? Okay, we'll go through the same process. Jennifer, if you read the motion for the recommendations for first 09 and or 08 and then 09. And now I'll call for the motion on 08.
Certainly, through you, Mayor Latchford. The recommendation is that application 08/2021 by Angela Sherry Cook and Kirsty Ann Faith Cook, agent Jesse Henderson, to sever a parcel of land for creation of a new vacant rural residential lot in part of Lot 10, Concession 1, Geographic Township of Alnwick, is hereby approved subject to the following conditions. 1, that a registered survey for the severed parcel be submitted to the township. 2, further to the printed plan of survey, a closed polygon vector file of the part boundaries shown on the reference plan is to be provided in spatially referenced Autodesk DWG Windows readable format to the satisfaction of the township. It is recommended that the applicant's Ontario land surveyor consult with the County of Northumberland GIS section to confirm acceptable standards and formatting. 3, that a draft transfer for the severed parcel be submitted to the township. 4, that the tax account for the severed subject property be paid up to date. 5, that a zoning bylaw amendment be in effect for the severed parcel pursuant to the Planning Act. 6, that the $10,205.70 development charge for the severed lot be paid to the Township of Alnwick-Haldeman. 7, that the that the $1,500 cash in lieu of parkland fee be paid to the Township of Alnwick-Haldeman. And 8, that the applicants shall lay out and dedicate to the County of Northumberland a strip of land ensuring 15 meters, 50 feet from the center line of County Road 18 along the frontage of the severed and retained portions for road widening purposes to the satisfaction of the County of Northumberland. Sorry, Mayor Latchford, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm having some computer problems. Could I have a motion for application AH08-2021, please?
Councillor Phillip will make that motion.
Mike, second. Deputy Mayor Gibson. Calling for the vote. Deputy Mayor Gibson,
Yay.
Councillor Phillip,
Yay.
Councillor Booth,
Yay.
Councillor Hogg,
Yay.
and myself in favor, carried. We'll do AH09, Jennifer.
Certainly, through you, Mayor Latchford. The recommendation is that application AH09 2021 by Angela Sherry Cook and Kirsty Ann Faith Cook, agent Jesse Henderson, to sever a parcel of land for the creation of a new vacant rural residential lot in part of Lot 10, Concession 1, Geographic Township of Alnwick, is hereby approved, subject to the following conditions: that a registered survey for the severed parcel be submitted to the township. 2, further to the printed plan of survey, a closed polygon vector file of the part boundaries shown on the reference plan is to be provided in spatially referenced Autodesk DWG Windows readable format to the satisfaction of the township. It is recommended that the applicant's Ontario land surveyor consult with the County of Northumberland GIS section to confirm acceptable standards and formatting. 3, that a draft transfer for the severed parcel be submitted to the township. 4, that the tax account for the subject property be paid up to date. 5, that a zoning bylaw amendment be in effect for the severed parcel pursuant to the Planning Act. 6, that the $10,205.70 development charge for the severed lot be paid to the Township of Alnwick-Haldeman. 7, that the $1,500 cash in lieu of parkland fee be paid to the Township of Alnwick-Haldeman. 8, that the applicant shall lay out and dedicate to the County of Northumberland a strip of land ensuring 15 meters, 50 feet from the center line of County Road 18 along the frontage of the severed and retained portions for road widening purposes to the satisfaction of Northumberland County.
Thank you. Could I have a motion for this one? I'm assuming that there won't be any other comments on 09 since they're the same. Could I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Deputy Mayor Gibson. Second by Councillor Hogg. And I'll call for the vote. Deputy Mayor Gibson,
Yay.
Councillor Phillip,
Yay.
Councillor Booth,
Yay.
Councillor Hogg,
Yay.
and myself, that's carried. I guess I better say it was approved. Item number or consent application AH10 2021, Renaud Shute. And if we can have that one, Jennifer.
Certainly, through you, Mayor Latchford. This application applies to land. The address is 295 Sandy Bay Road. The property is located in part of Lot 24, Concession 7, Geographic Township of Alnwick. The application is for the creation of a 0.4 hectare lot from the property, resulting in a retained lot of about 5.6 hectares. The property is located on the south side of Sandy Bay Road. The approximately 6 hectare subject property fronts on Sandy Bay Road and is located in the northeastern area of the municipality. The property is heavily forested and is located on the south side of Sandy Bay Road. Properties on the north side of Sandy Bay Road front on the Trent River, and the river lands are heavily developed with residential and seasonal residential development. While the shorelands have been heavily developed, the lands on the south side, which is the location of the subject land, remain largely undeveloped with large forested areas. An unevaluated wetland was located on the subject property at the northwest corner of the property, and it was identified by Lower Trent Conservation during a site visit. There's a drainage feature that also runs along the entire frontage of the subject property. Another water course was identified running through the southern portion of the property, flowing northeast and eventually draining into the Trent River. The subject property has been designated rural and environmental protection in the Township of Alnwick-Haldeman official plan. The environmental protection designation is located on the southern portion of the property, approximately 375 meters from the proposed severed lot. So it's not really relevant to this application. So the northern portion is designated rural, and the provincial policy statement does allow for limited residential development in the rural areas. Compliance with MDS is required, and no livestock barns were identified within 750 meters of the property. The wetland located on the property is a natural heritage feature and requires protection under the provincial policy statement. The proposed severed lot is located within the 120-meter influence area for natural heritage features. A map illustrating the location of the wetland was prepared by Lower Trent and was attached to the report. The wetland would be considered a key hydrologic feature under the growth plan and for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, and the policies of the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe require the completion of a hydrologic evaluation prior to any development occurring within 120 meters of the hydrologic feature. A hydrologic evaluation was not submitted with the application. Lower Trent commented that any land within 30 meters of a wetland is regulated by them. So any development or building within 30 meters would require a permit from Lower Trent Conservation. They also indicated that floodplain mapping is not available for the water course or the drainage ditch, and the extent of flooding is unknown. However, they did indicate that based on their review, their review of the application, that engineered floodplain mapping is not warranted to define the flooding hazard. The water course on the southern portion of the property would be considered fish habitat. However, the proposed severed lot is located outside of the 120-meter influence area for fish habitat. So the application is not consistent with the provincial policy statement and the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, as development is proposed within 120 meters of a key hydrologic feature without the completion of a hydrologic evaluation. The subject property is not located on the Oak Ridges Moraine. The property is designated rural, and the county official plan permits it, so that's fine. The township of Onwek-Haldeman official plan permits residential severances, rural residential severances on lands that are designated rural. However, they require that the properties have frontage on a maintained municipal road, which in this case they do. It's Sandy Bay Road. Like the PPS, the official plan requires that lots be appropriately sized. In this case, the 0.4 hectare lot would be appropriately sized to accommodate the requisite private services. Official plan policies require that a property owner have owned a property for a minimum 3 years in order to be eligible. In this case, they haven't owned the property for 3 years. The ownership requirement in our official plan, that's something that when we update our official plan, I'm looking at removing, because really if it's eligible for a severance, it's eligible for a severance. It shouldn't matter how long the property's owned. So that one, it's something that if there were no other issues, then I wouldn't really stop something on it. But given the fact that there are other issues with the property, I have concerns with this application. Section 8 of the official plan for the Township of Onwek-Haldeman contains policies intended to protect the natural environment. Lower Trent identified the wetland. The wetland is considered a key hydrologic feature under the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, and it requires the completion of the growth plan requires the completion of a hydrologic evaluation. The official plan indicates that when development is proposed adjacent to a natural heritage feature, such as a wetland, the municipality shall require the proponent to prepare an environmental impact study to ensure there will be no negative impact on the natural heritage feature or its function. In this case, since the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe requires the completion of a hydrologic evaluation, it has been determined that the completion of the hydrologic evaluation would likely satisfy the EIS requirement for an application on this property. The subject property is zoned rural, and the proposed 0.4 hectare lot doesn't meet the minimum lot area requirement. So it would have to be rezoned. And he's also proposing a lot that doesn't have the minimum 45-meter frontage as required by the rural residential zone. So it would require a rural residential exception zone. And the reason that he had proposed the 38.1 meter frontage for the severed lot was he was trying to keep the severed lot narrow enough to allow for a driveway outside of the regulated area to provide access to the retained lands. The application was reviewed by the manager of public works, who commented that an entrance permit would be permitted at a location to be approved by him. Lower Trent recommended that the application be deferred until such time as a revised lot configuration proposal is provided, demonstrating that all components of the development on the retained lands can respect the 30-meter regulated wetland allowance associated with the unevaluated wetland, and a hydrologic evaluation is provided to ensure compliance with section 4.2.4 of the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. Northumberland County reviewed the application and confirmed that the proposed severance conforms to the intent and they don't have any problem with it. Alderville First Nation commented that they had no issue with the proposed application. Public circulation was undertaken on May 7th and a sign was posted on the property on the same day. No public comments have been, I did receive after the report was prepared, an email from adjacent landowner supporting the proposed severance application. So the conclusion is an on-site wetland has been confirmed by Lower Trent. It's considered a key hydrologic feature under the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, and a hydrologic evaluation is required for all development within 120 meters of a key hydrologic feature. One hasn't been submitted, so it doesn't comply with those policies. In addition, Lower Trent has indicated that a change in lot configuration will be required because the current proposal does not allow for access to the retained parcel outside of the 30-meter setback from the wetland. So my recommendation is that this application be deferred to allow the applicant time to complete the required hydrologic evaluation and consult with Lower Trent regarding a revised lot configuration.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the applicant? Rennie? Do you wish to speak to this application or to address your application?
Yeah, it's Randy talking here now. On the west end of it where they had the wetlands, we assumed it was by the stone fence. And since then we've had a survey and that has moved over, I believe it is 10 meters. And I think they moved the wetland with that survey, which crowds for the second laneway in there. Whereas before, Victoria from Lower Trent said that shouldn't be an issue. And now it has become a bit of an issue. I don't know if that can be reevaluated or not.
Okay, I missed some of that, Rennie. Does that mean you moved the lot a little bit as well?
We didn't move it. When it was purchased, it was 345 feet. Then when they did a survey, it became 315 feet, I believe, 10 meters short of what we had actually went by, which is okay. It's just that we had Lower Trent in there before we had the survey done, and we assumed and went by the stone fence that was in there.
Okay. Anything else? Any other concern or comment?
When the Lower Trent was out here, it was said that there would be no pines growing in a wetland. Well, if you walk through that piece, I think the only reason why it became a wetland is because the ditch would not take the spring water off because there's not a culvert there to remove it to the ditch, which would be on the opposite side of the road. And nobody living there, it never really mattered. So now it's in a spot where if there had been a culvert there, I don't think that ever would have been a piece of wetland. Other than that, whether you can take a look at it, I think Sherry and Jim might know a little bit more on it too.
Okay. If there's nothing further, I'll ask for public comments. Any comments from the public regarding this application? Seeing none. Comments from council? Councillor Phillip?
Yes, I just want to comment that I would support Jennifer Curran's recommendation that hydrological study is done, also LTC's comment, and that that they look at the reconfiguration of the lot, which sounds to me like it has to be done anyway because of the shrinkage of the lot. I would concur with Planner Current.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Gibson?
And through you, Mayor Latchford, I am very familiar with this area, and I do know that you know, a lot of what has become wetland there is, you know, due to past construction of roadway and lack of culverts. We've experienced it at our own property also. But I guess I just want to be clear that if these owners undertake the hydrologic evaluation, that there is no concern with a severance and a rezoning. Because it's a significant expense, and for us to put somebody through that, if you know, in the end we can't determine, you know, if we aren't positive right now that may, you know, that we'll be able to approve it once we receive that, then, you know, in all fairness, that money shouldn't be spent.
Certainly, through you, Mayor Latchford. If it was only the completion of the hydrologic evaluation, and it's my understanding that the hydrologic evaluation, the minimum that they have to do is provide a 30-meter minimum vegetative protective zone between the hydrologic feature and the development. Now, I'm not an I'm not an ecologist, I'm a planner. So with an application, there is always some degree of risk. So what I could say is that provided the outcome of the hydrologic evaluation was successful, and they could demonstrate and provide the minimum 30-meter vegetative protective zone, then I won't have any concerns with it. But I think in this case, rather than retain a consultant to prepare the hydrologic evaluation, what they should do first is consult with Lower Trent regarding the revised lot configuration, because if there's no way that they can satisfy Lower Trent with the revised lot configuration, probably shouldn't proceed with the hydrologic evaluation.
Right. And if that lot was moved somewhere else on that parcel,
it can't, unfortunately, in this case, it can't be moved, because the only way to move it would be to move it closer to the wetland. It's not a wide piece of property. It's a narrow, it's for the size of the property, it's pretty narrow. So there's no place to move it. that makes it farther away from the wetland.
Yeah. I mean, from a township perspective, this is, you know, an opportunity, I think, to start growth on the north side of that road, which is, I mean, we've got the houses along the south side. It makes sense that there is growth along the north, and that, you know, we've got services running down there anyway. So, you know, I don't have any concerns from a township perspective that there's going to be a lot creation there. And I just think it's a shame, because it's a great piece of property for somebody to build on that, you know, given the perceived wetlands, that it can't move forward. So I guess I would say to the owners, the Shoots, have a conversation then first and foremost with Lower Trent to ensure that how they want to move forward with the revised lot line is going to meet the requirements. Is that fair? Is that fair to say? Because I think sometimes we get all caught up in the language, and it's difficult for people to really understand.
Yes, I wouldn't.
What the next step is.
If I thought at the end of the day that it would be absolutely impossible, I would have recommended that the application be denied and not go through the expense of a hydrologic evaluation. But in this case, I would definitely tier if I was the applicant, I would recommend that they tier their inquiries, start with Lower Trent to ensure that that can be addressed, because Lower Trent will have some better appreciation also, whether they're going to ultimately be able to satisfy the requirements of the growth plan with the hydrologic evaluation, because it's my understanding that it is a 30-meter minimum vegetative protective zone between the feature and the proposed development. So if there's no way to get a lot in there with that 30 meters, then probably shouldn't proceed. But if we can just reduce the frontage to 30 meters or 35 meters and make it a deeper lot, then that's something that we have the flexibility to look at from the township's perspective. So
yeah,
we can
sorry, Jennifer, the mapping of those wetlands is based on current data, right?
Yes, it's my understanding that they did go out and do a site visit though. And if you look at the map in the report, it will say field verified wetland, because the area that was actually identified in my screening, which I sent Mr. Shute to begin with to the Conservation Authority, I said, look, you've got to talk to them first because the entire area looks to be regulated. So he contacted them. They did a site visit and they confirmed the wetland on that green area on the schedule, as opposed to the larger red area.
Right.
And the yellow line around it is the 30-meter setback.
Okay.
So I think one of the issues was that when they initially went out with Mr. Shute and they were doing the site visit, when they located the wetland, they would have verified it with GPS, so using your GPS and that sort of thing. And they thought that the property line was the stone fence when it wasn't really the stone fence. So he subsequently had a survey done, and they've accurately located the wetland boundary. So now it's a matter of making sure that the proposed lot and access to the retained lands can take place, and that they've got the sufficient area.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I missed most of what you said because of my connection, Jennifer, but I won't get you to repeat it because I'm aware of the drift of it all. But when there isn't any other agency that objects to this, so hopefully that goes in the Shute's favor as well. And It is a nice area there and would be a nice lot, I agree, and beneficial to the municipality. So hopefully that Mr. and Mrs. Shute have better luck with Lower Trent. Any further comments from council? I'm probably echoing, but I had to go off my headphones. They're not working.
We have to invest in a good pair of little buds or something for your ears there, Gil.
Something. Are there any other comments from council for this application? No? Okay. Could I have a motion then from council? Deputy Mayor?
Can I just, I just want to ask if I could through you to Jennifer, just while, because I know Rennie is on the phone still and listening. If we make a deferral until such time as he consults with Lower Trent and gets an evaluation done, are we looking at, what's the timeline, I guess, for getting it onto the next meeting schedule, just to give them an idea about how long that process could take?
It will depend, that is ultimately dependent upon how long it will take to get his a study undertaken. We won't, I will do my best not to be the limiting factor. This is the statutory public meeting for that application. So that component is finished. So we don't have to give notice after, public notice after this, this meeting. So the agenda packages go out generally the Friday before the meeting. So I would need it probably 2 weeks before a meeting so that I would have time to review everything. So I can turn it around fairly quickly for if I get it for a planning meeting. However, what's going to take time is getting somebody to do the work and undertaking the necessary study.
Yeah. And can you provide a list of companies that do that?
Yeah, Lower Trent, Lower Trent has a list of consultants and I can provide it to Mr. Shute. I believe it has already been provided, but I'm not sure. So I will forward it to him.
Okay. Mayor Latchford, I will make a motion that this application be deferred until such time as the Shutes are able to confer with Lower Trent on a revised lot configuration.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Seconder for that motion, Councillor Phil. Jennifer, also, we'll have the planning meeting in June, July, and is there one in August?
No, there's no planning meeting in August.
Okay, just so that people are aware. So the motion for this AH10 2021 is to defer until the applicant has opportunity to meet with Lower Trent and follow through with what needs to be done. I'll call for the vote. Deputy Mayor Gibson?
Yay.
Councillor Phillip?
Yay.
Councillor Booth?
Yay.
Councillor Hogg?
Yay.
And myself in favor, that's carried. Okay. Now, item 8 is motion to reconvene to the municipal planning meeting. And the motion is, be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Alnwick-Haldeman, being a land division committee of adjustment, reconvene to the municipal planning meeting at 10:45 a.m. And I have the little public reading I have to do here. Public meeting, zoning bylaw amendments. The purpose of this public meeting is to hear applications for zoning bylaw amendments. The public meeting is conducted as prescribed by Section 3413 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 as amended for 2 zoning bylaw amendment applications affecting land in the geographic township of Alnwick. 3. Yes, 3 today. This meeting will be conducted in the following manner. Firstly, I will identify the application being considered. The senior planner will then provide a brief overview of the details of the application. Number 1, the applicant will then be given an opportunity to address council. Number 2, I will ask if there are any members of the public in attendance who have questions or comments regarding the application. If you wish to speak to the application, please state your name and address for the record prior to addressing the committee. And then the committee will be asked to provide any comments or questions. If anyone other than the applicant who wishes to receive further notice of council's decisions on these applications, they must submit a written request for notice of council's decision to the senior planner. Will the senior planner please advise the committee on how notice of this meeting was given?
Certainly, through you, Mayor Latchford. I would just like to also confirm that we're also having today a public meeting for a proposed cannabis zoning bylaw amendment that it was initiated by the Township of Alnwick-Haldeman. And notice of the public meeting for the cannabis zoning bylaw was placed in the Northumberland News, the Thursday, May 6, 2021 edition, and it was placed on the municipal website, the township's public consultation website, Bang the Table, and the municipal Facebook page. Notice of the private zoning bylaw amendments were given to all registered landowners within 120 meters of the properties on May 7th, with signs posted on the property on the same day.
Okay, thank you. We will now proceed with the public meeting for the rezonings.
Okay, first application for rezoning is application Z07 2021. It's by Reynolds Shute for the property at 295 Sandy Bay Road, part of Lot 24, Concession 7, geographic Alnwick. And the purpose of the application was to rezone a proposed severed lot to a rural residential zone. We have the land division, this application was submitted concurrently with the application for the consent application that was just deferred by the Land Division Committee. We can proceed with the recommendation in this case is also that the application be deferred pending the completion of the hydrologic evaluation as required by the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. We can proceed with the public meeting so that when the hydrologic evaluation is completed, that we don't need to have another public meeting at that point in time. The application, the property is zoned rural and designated rural in the township's official plan. The provincial policy statement does allow for limited residential development in rural areas, as we discussed earlier. However, in this case, because the application is located within 120 meters of the key hydrologic feature, it's recommended that a hydrologic evaluation be completed and that the rezoning application that would support the severance application be deferred until such time as that hydrologic evaluation has been addressed and revised lot configuration has been discussed with Lower Trent Conservation. So provided those two issues can be resolved, I wouldn't have any concern with recommending approval. It would be consistent with the official plan and the zoning and maintain the intent of the county official plan. However, we need to deal with these technical issues to ensure that the lot configuration is appropriate and that the environmental feature is protected as required by those policies. So once those are done, I wouldn't have any concern with the application. However, we do need to have that work completed in order for the recommendation to approve the application. So we could solicit any public comments or concerns over the application. And again, with this application, I did receive, after the report was prepared, an email from an adjacent landowner supporting the proposed severance.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from you, Rennie?
No, I think I'm good with that. I'll on that now.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any comments from the public for this application? Seeing none. Council, do you have any comments? Seeing none. So our motion then, Jennifer, will be to defer this, that we've had the public meeting on it. We defer it
Yes, you can just read the recommendation.
to after Shoots have an opportunity to resolve the issues with the Lower Trent.
That's correct. The recommendation is just that the application be deferred. So that's sufficient.
And then we won't have to do this again. Okay. So I'll have a mover for that, please.
I'll move that.
Councillor Hogg. Second. Deputy Mayor Gibson. Any further comments, Council? I'll call for the vote. Deputy Mayor Gibson.
Yay.
Councillor Phillip.
Yay.
Councillor Booth.
Yay.
Councillor Hogg.
Yay.
And myself in favor. That's carried. And we have the applications Z08 and do we have two there, Jennifer? Angela Cook and Christy Ann? Z08,
no, they're only required to do one zoning bylaw
53,
amendment.
2021, concession 1, part of lot 10, geographic Alnwick. I guess they'll both be on the same one.
That's correct. Through you, Mayor Latchford. They only have to do one zoning bylaw amendment. It can rezone both of the proposed severed lots.
Okay,
Yes,
you want to take us through that?
Certainly, through you, Mayor Latchford. This application, it's application Z08 2021, applies to lands owned by Angela Sherry Cook and Kirsty Ann Faith Cook, agent Jesse Henderson, and is required as a condition of consent applications AH08 2021 and AH09 2021, which were earlier approved by the Land Division Committee at their meeting this morning. With those applications, 2.4 hectare severed lots were conditionally approved, and they require rezoning to the rural residential zone because they don't meet the minimum 5 hectare lot area requirement for the proposed or for a lot in the rural zone. The application is consistent with the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe and the provincial policy statement. The lands subject to the application are located outside of the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan. There are no natural heritage or hazard features identified on the proposed lots or the lots to be rezoned. Northumberland County reviewed the application and there are no concerns. Lower Trent reviewed the application and there are no concerns. With the consent applications, the Northumberland County did request a road widening condition, and that has been included in the Land Division Committee decision. So the recommendation is that the request for rezoning of the proposed 0.4 hectare severed lots to the rural residential zone be approved.
Thank you. Any comments from the agent? Any comments from the public? Any comments from council? Seeing none, I'll call for the motion on this one. Could I have a mover, please, to approve?
Councillor Philip.
Councillor Booth. And second, Councillor Philip.
Yeah.
Okay, that's to approve the bylaw, the rezoning bylaw. Okay, call for the vote. Deputy Mayor Gibson.
Yay.
Councillor Philip.
Yay.
Yay.
Councillor Booth.
Yay.
Councillor Hogg.
Yay.
And myself, that's carried. So now we have a report on 2021-PED 27, the bylaw number 68, 2021. And this is the planning report cannabis zoning bylaw amendment for the township of Alnwick-Haldeman. And this is the one Jennifer has been working on. So we'll let her take us through that one as well.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Latchford. In May of 2020, the township passed an interim control bylaw to prohibit the cultivation of cannabis except for the four plants per household as was permitted for recreational or medicinal purposes. And the purpose of that interim control bylaw was to allow the municipality time to develop regulations regarding cannabis production facilities and specifically medical cannabis production facilities for personal use. We had received a number of inquiries from people looking to purchase properties in the municipality, largely large agricultural properties in the municipality for the purpose, it would seem, of the cultivation of medical cannabis for personal use. Our existing zoning bylaw doesn't contain provisions for medical cannabis for personal use. It contains provisions for cannabis production and processing facilities, which are licensed by the federal government and were permitted in the general industrial zone. So you passed an interim control bylaw in June, which gave it, or in May of 2020, to give us time to look at the cannabis regulations. In April of 2021, I brought a report forward with some proposals regarding cannabis and recommended that the interim control bylaw be extended while we get the new policies in place. We don't want the interim control bylaw to lapse without having proper regulations in place. So and that recommendation was approved at last month's municipal planning meeting. So included in today's agenda is a bylaw that will extend the interim control bylaw. And so with what we've discovered, or I've discovered in my review of the cannabis, specifically cannabis related to medical cannabis uses in Ontario, is that it's regulated by Health Canada, and when somebody has a prescription from their health practitioner for medical cannabis, they get a prescription, and the prescription is presented in the number of grams per day of dried cannabis required. According to the Health Cannabis, or the Health Canada guidelines and guidelines from the College of Family Physicians of Canada, they have a guidance document called Guidance in Authorizing Cannabis Production Within Primary Care. It was dated, it's a current document, it's March of 2021. And they say that the access to cannabis for medical purposes regulations allow physicians to authorize as much as 5 grams of cannabis per day. However, it is expected that the analgesic benefit will occur for most patients at considerably lower doses, and that the upper level to safe use of cannabis is in the order of 3 grams per day. Now, on the Health Canada website, they have a cannabis calculator. and you put in the number of grams per day of cannabis required, and it will say the number of plants that are required to supply that. And 3 grams per day, which is the upper limit that the Canadian College of Family Physicians is recommending, would result in 15 indoor plants, 6 outdoor plants, or 11 indoor and 3 outdoor plants. Now, during the public consultation of our documents, the issue was raised whether you could have both 15 indoor plants and then later have 6 outdoor plants. So produce your 6 outdoor plants in the summertime and then convert to 15 indoor plants during the winter season. So I submitted a request to Health Canada, and Health Canada confirmed that it is either 15 indoor plants or, not in addition to, 6 outdoor plants. Or if you're going to grow them in combination, to grow them some in the inside and some outside to account for seasons, it's the 6 or 3 outdoor plants in order to supply 3 grams. So our regulations are going to need to differentiate that you can't have the 15 indoor during the winter and then switch to 6 outdoor in the summer. If you want to do it seasonally, you can have 3 outdoor plants and 11 indoor plants. Now, in order for somebody to grow medical cannabis for their own personal use, they have to have a registration certificate that's issued by Health Canada. I contacted them. They provided me with the sort of parameters around it and confirmed that it needs to be in one of the 2 official languages, because I have seen people show me things saying I have medical cannabis, but the only word that I can recognize is cannabis. So it either has to be in French or English. Recently, the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks released proposed new land use compatibility guideline, which would replace, they're called the existing D-series guidelines, and they're guidelines regarding they're generally industrial guidelines looking at separations between sensitive land uses and industrial uses. And in these proposed guidelines, Table 1 contains a cannabis production facilities and includes a minimum 500-meter separation distance and a 200-meter area of influence between a cannabis production and processing facility and a sensitive land use within a settlement area. Now, this is important because it's within a settlement area. So these ones are not medical cannabis production facilities. We're talking about a cannabis production and processing facility that you would see in an urban area. But what's interesting is that the influence area is 2,000 meters and the minimum distance separation is 500 meters. But in this case, what the influence area and the minimum distance separation area mean are that within those areas, studies may be required to look at issues such as noise, odor, transportation, traffic, all of those sorts of things. Not necessarily that they're precluded, and that there may be some mitigation measures required in order to have a production processing facility within a settlement area that is inside of either the minimum distance separation or the influence area. So while that doesn't affect our proposed medical cannabis process or production regulations, it will come into effect with our cannabis production and processing facilities that we currently permit in the general industrial zone, because we do not have a 500-meter minimum distance or 2,000-meter area of influence. But these guidelines just came out, and they're not they're just out for consultation now. I have a meeting next week where an information session on it. So once those D guidelines get finalized, the existing D series guidelines are referenced in our official plan. So once the new guidelines become available and are finalized by the government, we'll update our official plan and our zoning bylaw to ensure compliance with those. But I just wanted to bring that up to let you know that that's going on, but we can't at this point in time adopt those setbacks or those regulations based on that, because they're at a really preliminary stage. They might change, and I don't want to update our documents based on a proposed or draft guideline. So our zoning bylaw also contains a definition right now for cannabis production and processing facility. And our existing definition is a cannabis production facility means a building or portion thereof used for growing, producing, packaging, testing, destroying, storing, or distribution on a wholesale basis of cannabis or marijuana and authorized by a license issued by the Federal Minister of Health. This use does not include retail sales from a provincially licensed cannabis marijuana retail facility. And as I said, they're only permitted in our township now in the general industrial zone. So with the proposed changes that I am suggesting to ensure protection for the municipality and regulations, appropriate regulations for medical cannabis, is that we change some definitions and add definitions to our zoning bylaw, and then some regulations specifically pertaining to medical cannabis. One of the recommendation is that we expand the definition of a cannabis production facility to mean a premise used for primarily growing and processing of a cannabis authorized by a license issued by Health Canada. Testing, research, storing, and or distribution of cannabis may be permitted as an accessory use. Now, the difference between that and the original definition that is currently in is the original definition speaks to a building or portion thereof, whereas this definition speaks to a premise. A premise could be land or it could be a building. So if they're using the land, they can't say, oh, your definition doesn't say that I can't do it on my land. Your definition says it's only in a building or a building or a portion of a building. No, it's the entire property that we're looking at. So then I'm also suggesting that we have a separate definition for a cannabis processing facility, which means a premise used primarily processing and cannabis authorized by a license issued by Health Canada. Testing, storing, and or distribution of cannabis may be permitted as an accessory use. I'm also recommending that we have a cannabis testing and research facility definition. And chances are we're probably not going to get a cannabis testing or research facility, but we may as well just include the definition in our zoning bylaw. And it means a premise where any analytical testing, including any third-party testing and research and development of new products, improve existing products, or to increase knowledge of cannabis authorized by a license issued by Health Canada. Now, in order to differentiate between commercial cannabis production facilities and cannabis production for personal medical use, I'm recommending including the following definition in our zoning bylaw. Production of cannabis for own medical purposes means the growing of cannabis plants allowed by a registration certificate under the federal cannabis regulations, which is issued against a production of cannabis for own medical purposes application that is also issued only for the growing of plants at the certificate holder's ordinary place of residence, with that registration certificate limiting the growing of plants to a maximum of 15 indoor plants, or a maximum of 6 outdoor plants, or a maximum of 11 indoor plants and 3 outdoor plants in combination. Now, those plant limits were based on the 3 grams of dried cannabis per day, which according to the Canada College of Family Physicians was the maximum dosage for maximum analgesic effect. So that's impact.
Can I just interrupt you there,
Certainly.
Jennifer, for a minute? When I was reading that, I was wondering, people have the right to privacy as well with their medical issues. And how are we going to make sure? I mean, we can put the definitions in, and they can say they have a medical certificate, but how far can we go as far as, do they have to produce that?
I believe they have to produce their certificate to say that they, because in addition to being able to grow your own cannabis for personal use, it has to be a use that's permitted.
Yes.
It has to be permitted. It's not just otherwise and by saying that it has to be permitted by the municipality, we have to be able to see a copy of their registration certificate. And all the registration certificate will say, it won't say any underlying condition or why it's required. It's a registration certificate. You're authorized for 15 plants, 15 outdoor plant or indoor plants, or 15 plants, or sorry, it'll be grams per day. So 3 grams per day, and it will specify the number of plants that are permitted. So I think it is reasonable to have them produce the registration certificate from the that's issued by the federal government. It doesn't give you any information regarding an underlying health issue. It just says that I'm permitted to grow my own cannabis, as per the guidelines.
Well, thanks for that verification.
Okay. So public consultation. We undertook public consultation. It was placed in the ad was placed in the Northumberland News. It was put on our website, our Facebook page, and our Let's Talk almakaldaman.ca. And I received 3 public comments. I received an additional one just yesterday that I'll speak to also. And the one comment was regarding cannabis nurseries, and it stated that in the staff report, reference was made to a surface area of 50 square meters, but it's only a limit for the flowering plants. For producing seeds, nurseries themselves have no size limit when it comes to non-flowering production. Cannabis nurseries are regulated by the federal government, so they're subject to the federal licensing process, and that's outside of these medical cannabis licenses, or they're not licenses, the registration certificates that we're talking about right now. So they're regulated by the federal government, and they require a very specific license. The regulations say that they can only be 50 square meters, and the proposed cannabis zone regulations permit cannabis production facilities, which would include cannabis nurseries, in the general industrial zone only, and they're subject to site plan control. So if we ever received an application for a commercial cannabis production facility, it's only permitted in the general industrial zone. It's also subject to site plan control. So we will know what the area is, and when it's subject to site plan control, we can ask for things like noise studies and odor studies and all of that sort of thing. So I don't think that this is a huge concern right now, because it is subject to federal license. The next comment was concern was expressed regarding the issue of odor associated with existing medical cannabis growth, and wondering if setbacks can be included in the zone provisions. Yes, and my answer was yes, we are I will be recommending setbacks. I'm looking at 20 meters from a front lot line, 7.5 meters from a lot line abutting a street, and 3 meters from any other lot line. We can't put in setback requirements that are so restrictive that would essentially prohibit somebody from actually doing the use. That's kind of like saying, yes, you can have something, but by the way, you have to have 100-meter setback from all of your property lines, and it's not reasonable. We have to set reasonable setback requirements. And then that third comment, this was the one that triggered the the inquiry into the number of plants, whether you could have the indoor cultivation and the outdoor cultivation seasonally. The comment was that to insert the word annually after the number of plants required to supply 3 grams of dried cannabis. And I will be looking, I appreciated that comment. We will be including wording to ensure that it is clear that you cannot have the indoor cultivation and the outdoor cultivation. So it could very well be that we do use the word annually in that definition. The second paragraph, it is legal that 4 cannabis can be grown annually per residence or outdoors. Not much to regulate there. Oh, she was also, this inquirer was wondering whether it was also possible to require ventilation equipment to reduce odors when plants were being cultivated. I think that it would be very difficult for the municipality to regulate ventilation for cannabis production in somebody's house, because the regulations by Health Canada are you're allowed to do this in your house. For us to then go in and require certain ventilation and that sort of equipment and that sort of thing, I believe it goes beyond the scope. When we get into the commercial cannabis production facilities, odor studies will be required, special ventilation. We can have peer review of those studies, but I don't believe that we can require ventilation special ventilation within people's houses for cannabis. And also the number of registration certificates per property. Right now, the way cannabis production works, you can, if you have a registration certificate, you can either grow it yourselves or you can designate somebody else to grow it for you. It was going to be my suggestion that in residential zones, 1 registration certificate be permitted per residential property. So we're talking about rural residential, hamlet residential, shoreline residential, limited service residential. So a maximum of 1 registration certificate per property. This is what my initial thinking was. And that on rural and agricultural properties, that they be permitted to have the equivalent of 4. And I've been going back and forth about this. In my report, I said 60 indoor plants, 24 outdoor plants, or 44 indoor plants and 12 indoor plants in combination, provided the property has a minimum lot area of 5 hectares. I think what I'm recommending is it is 4 registration certificates in addition to me specifying the maximum of 60 indoor, 24 outdoor. I will add a maximum of 4 registration certificates per property, just to make it clear on that one. And with that one, I've included a minimum lot area of 5 hectares for properties that are either in zoned rural or agricultural. And the reason I used 5 hectares is because that's the minimum lot area for the rural zone. The minimum lot area for the agricultural zone is much larger. And also, this came up with the further consultation with Health Canada. They have, their regulations also say medical cannabis production for your own use cannot occur on lands adjacent to areas where children congregate. So that generally means schools and parks. So I am recommending that we include a prohibition that medical cannabis production for own purpose is not permitted on properties adjacent to schools or parks. And I received another comment, I got it by email either late last night or today, with respect to whether it would affect a person's ability to produce cannabis for medical purposes if they already have a license. And this is, yes, it would, unless for some reason if they started growing it before the interim control bylaw came into effect, there may be some status there if it's medical cannabis production for own purposes. But really, medical production of cannabis for own personal use really has not been permitted for the past year, because all people could grow was the 4 plants for personal use. I mean, they could have grown up to 4 plants for medical purposes over this past year. So that's a summary of the regulations that I'm proposing that we put in our zoning bylaw, and some new definitions and a revised definition for a cannabis production and processing facility.
Councillor Phelps.
Thank you, Mayor, and through the mayor to Jennifer. My first comment is, wow, that's a lot of work. And I appreciate the effort and support it 110%. I think we need to have a clear definition of what it means to grow cannabis or in our township. A small question I have about your report that I'm sure you've considered, and I would just like a little more definition of, is the term adjacent school or parks. What is that in in meters, or what are you thinking of there?
Abutting. I'm thinking if the property abuts. So on a property that abuts a school, so they have to have a common lot line. So a property next to a school, or that has a property line that abuts a school or a park, that cannabis production wouldn't be permitted. Medical cannabis or production for own purposes, taking into consideration that people could still grow 4 plants on that property as people are permitted to under the Cannabis Act right now, because everybody can grow 4 plants. Okay.
I would like to see that increased, but my other comment would be that what the sale of the product adjacent schools or parks from an outlet, a licensed outlet. Have you given that some thought?
That's a completely different issue. A number of years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, municipalities had the ability to either say they were going to allow retail cannabis sales within their municipality, or say that they weren't going to allow it. I believe that Alnwick-Haldeman did not request that cannabis production be prohibited, or the retail sale of cannabis not be, they didn't prohibit the retail sale. What there is in the retail component, I believe these are regulations passed by the province of Ontario. There is an influence area around schools that prohibit the retail sales of cannabis. And I'm trying to, I can't remember the distance off the top of my head. I wish I could. I apologize, but it is in the provincial legislation regarding the retail sales of cannabis. And when it first came out, I prepared a series of maps for council that showed the influence area around our schools. And it was fairly significant because in Grafton, it covered almost all of the retail area of Grafton because you've got the two schools there. And in Roseneath, the same thing with the school property there. So there is a regulation regarding retail sales, but it is at a provincial level.
Okay, thank you. I'm guessing, I'm trying to remember that report, and I don't know why 1,000 meters sticks in my mind, but
I don't think it's 1,000 meters, but for some reason I'm thinking 300 feet or 300 meters. But I do have those drawings and I will forward them to you. I see that Grit has her hand raised there, so she may have something on this topic. I know she's quite familiar with cannabis regulations.
The regulations for the cannabis retail stores is 150 meters from schools.
Thank you, Grit.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, I'll just reiterate, I'm very, very pleased with the report so far. And I guess it's pretty obvious where I sit on this issue, but I'm very pleased with this report and your proposals, and make haste. Good job. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jennifer. Are there any other comments or questions, Sherry?
Just, through you, Mayor Latchford, Jennifer, just a process question, Jennifer. Once these changes are incorporated, will it go back out for public review, the document, or will it just come to council for final approval?
It was my intention to just bring it to council for final approval at the June meeting. This is the statutory required public meeting for a zoning bylaw amendment. If council wants to alter that, that's something that we could do. You could bring, the only way through our procedural bylaws is to have public comment, is to have a public meeting. So I could prepare the draft bylaw, the actual bylaw, and include it in a report for public review at the June meeting for adoption in July. It was my intention to prepare the actual zoning bylaw for adoption by council at the June meeting.
But it'll go on to an agenda, and anybody who's interested in the content is going to be able to read it on the published agenda and make comment.
Correct.
To staff. So I'm not certain that another public meeting is necessary. I just think that, I want to make sure that, that final document that, if there are any really outstanding concerns by our residents, that we have an opportunity to address them.
Yes, it will be, the draft bylaw will be included in the agenda package for the June meeting. And the agenda package is typically published the Friday before the council meeting.
Okay. I think Gail's frozen. Either that or she's fallen asleep with her eyes open.
She's giving us the cold shoulder. Yeah.
It's funny that the internet upstairs is two people using it and it's both such different user experiences.
Yeah.
Okay, she's probably gone off and is coming back on, but while she's doing that, are there any other comments by council?
No, I have none.
Okay. I'm just going to grab my, in the interest of time, I could move ahead and chair this while she's getting reconnected, chair the meeting. And Jennifer, you okay with that?
Jennifer's on mute.
I'm on mute. Yes, I'm fine. We should open it up for public comments.
Now, okay.
Yeah.
So Susan, can you do that? Open it up for any public comments?
They will have to unmute themselves if they have a comment. Looks like Grit has a comment, as we cannot unmute them here.
Okay, go ahead, Grit.
Good afternoon through you, Deputy Mayor Gibson. I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to Planner Jennifer Curran for the very thorough review and professionalism that has come through in every single report that she has brought forward, including this regarding cannabis. Everyone knows cannabis is legal, but it is an important piece of legislation to make sure we get it right, that makes it fair for everyone. No one's trying to say no, but we want to make sure that it has the proper balance for people. I believe that Jennifer Curran has really made that happen here. Just to confirm on a couple of the items, when it comes to a medical registration certificate, and I know that Jennifer can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the restriction will be up to a maximum, I wasn't sure if it was 15 or 16 plants outdoors, or the 14 and 6 indoors, whatever. It's in your report, so I'm not really concerned about that. But one of the questions I did have, and you did answer that, no, they cannot do an additional 4 plants for recreational use. So if you have a medical registration certificate, you do not get to grow an additional 4 plants over and above. I think that's a very important regulation to make sure, or comment to make sure that that exists so people understand, because it's amazing that people will always interpret things the way they want it to be. So it just needs to be very clear that the maximum is that under medical registration certificate. And also when it comes to medical registration certificates and third-party growers with the up to the maximum of 4 medical registration certificates, that can only be done in rural and agricultural areas, but it can't be any bigger than 50 meters squared. Is that correct?
That was partly correct. The way I am proposing it at this point in time is that in the rural and agricultural zones, you can have the maximum of 4 registration certificates. So you can have the designated growers in the rural and agricultural areas, not in the any of the residential zones. I'm not sure where the 50 square meters came from. The 50 square meters applied to nurseries.
Okay.
In the rural and agricultural, they'll be limited to the 4 registration certificates, which could have a combined maximum of the plant equivalents of 60 indoor plants, 24 outdoor plants, or 44 indoor plants and 12 outdoor plants in combination. That's just 4 times what is permitted per registration certificate.
I really appreciate the limitation for 1 medical registration certificate per residence, because at the present time, some people are turning homes into literally grow ops. You can't even live in them. So this prohibits that. This means it is really for a personal use. So I greatly appreciate that, because it is being fair to the surrounding residents as well. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments, Grit. And any other comments from, I see one other caller on the line. No.
Doesn't look like anybody's is unmuted at all, Deputy Mayor.
I don't see any other hands up. So Mayor Latchford is back. So I'm going to pass the meeting back to you, Mayor Latchford.
Oh, thanks. I'm sitting over here by Greg now. I like the idea also of 1 medical certificate per household, but I'm wondering if we'll get flack back from that, Jennifer, if there are, there could be more than 1 per household. We found that out a while ago. And what can we do in that case? Like, did they grow together, or
If
whatever?
what's really
a difficult one.
What's really interesting with the cannabis production for medical purposes is I haven't actually had an inquiry from a resident who actually has their own registration certificate yet. We have had some inquiries from people wanting to know, telling us that they're looking at a farm and they want to have a registration certificate for medical cannabis. We have had some situations where there are property owners that were going to rent their land to other people who said they had registration certificates or that they had a license to grow for medical cannabis. But I haven't actually met anybody yet or had a call from somebody saying, I have a registration certificate for medical cannabis, or I have my husband and I, or there's 2 of us living in our house together and we both have it. If that came about where we actually had 2 residents of the municipality that had registration certificates, it would need a zoning bylaw amendment or a variance to permit it. And if there are actually people who that's the situation, the municipality could look at, if we think we're being overly restrictive with this, they could look at waiving the application fee for that variance to increase the number to allow for the registration certificates. But I don't think that we're going to find really that there are that many where two people in a house or a dwelling have more than 1 registration certificate. And if that's the case, they could designate somebody else in the rural or agricultural area to be their designated grower.
Yeah.
Which might be more appropriate rather than allowing that number of cannabis plants on a residential property.
It seems to me that we ran into it shortly after the cannabis became legal, and it was on Cliffrow Road. And from the information we had, at least 2 of the people in the household had medical. But they said with medical, we don't even know 100% for sure. So
Yeah.
remember that, council?
Yeah, I definitely remember that.
Yeah, we did. So, and there was complaints about it, but we did what we could, and
So as it stands right now, we're saying one is appropriate per property. If you have more than, if there's more than one person, depending on the size of the property, perhaps, like there are some larger rural residential properties where it might be possible to have two without any impact on adjacent property owners. However, if you've got two registration certificates, maybe it would be more appropriate to have it grown by a designated grower in the agricultural or rural zone where they're permitted to have up to 4 on a property, provided it's 5 hectares.
Can we incorporate that into the document?
I don't know that there's a need, like it's not really a regulation. We can just say you're allowed 1. And if you want, you can either take a chance going for a minor variance, or you can ask somebody in the rural or agricultural area to become your designated grower.
I just know I know that was such an issue for that one homeowner, and was just the problem couldn't be solved. But Gail, Grit has her hand up again, and I don't know if that was from prior or whether she's raised her hand again.
Yes, I have.
I can't see her. Okay. Go ahead, Grit.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Latchford. I have firsthand knowledge of the Hamlet residents that had 2 certificates, medical certificates growing, and the amount of plants were upwards of over 180 plants. Just based on this new regulations coming forward, the plants are going to be severely limited. So if there are people requiring that kind of dose, then they will have to go to a third-party grower, because it's just too many plants to have in a home, and the odor that comes from that and impact on the surrounding homes is exactly what this, I believe what this regulation being brought forward here is meant to prevent. So if someone's requiring those kinds of high doses, then perhaps they really should be buying it from a third-party grower where it's permitted, or from a cannabis production facility, which is what Health Canada really wants to have happen anyways. So that's just my 2 cents worth on that, because it would be prohibited anyways what these people were doing. So thank you, my comments.
Thank you. Councillor Phillip?
Referring back to the question, I would just prefer that Jennifer stated the 1 license and didn't get into the possibility of 2 for 2 residents, simply because it opens the door. If in that case there were 2 residents, they could have that discussion with Jennifer, and Jennifer could make a professional recommendation at that time. But I wouldn't open Pandora's box there. I'd keep it simple, and that way it unintentionally dissuades people from thinking along those lines.
Thank you. And we also have to think about the neighbors. So if it's, I like Jennifer's idea as well, one that's approved, but if there's proof that one of the other residents has to have it for medical purposes, that it could be brought back to the council of the day.
Yeah. Okay.
Any further comments? Okay. You're good, Jennifer?
Yep.
Okay, I'll read the motion. Be it resolved that bylaw number 68, 2021, being a bylaw under the provisions of section 38 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13, as amended to extend the period of time during which bylaw 56, 2020, an interim control bylaw to prohibit the establishment of cannabis production and processing facilities will be in effect, be read and deemed to be, what's council's wish there? Any more information or past this day, 27th day of May? Who's making the motion?
I'll make the motion, Councillor Phillip,
To approve?
to approve. Sorry.
Can I have a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor Gibson? Okay, I'll call for the vote. Deputy Mayor Gibson?
Yay.
Councillor Phillip?
Yay.
Councillor Booth?
Yay.
Councillor Hogg?
Yay.
And myself, so that's carried. I got papers all over the place here. Item 12, planning reports. Council report number 2021-PED 28 from Jennifer Current, Senior Planner, dated May 27th, 2021. Read the ministerial zoning orders request from Lower Trent Conservation. And the motion here is, be it resolved that council report number 2021-PED 28 from Jennifer Current, Senior Planner, dated May 27th, 21. Read ministerial zoning orders requests from Lower Conservation be received and filed. So that's not approving their request.
I'm sorry, through you, Mayor Latchford. I seem to not have that in my agenda package.
I think we
My
missed item
recommend-
11. We missed item 11. We jumped right to 12.
Adjournment, I have, am I out of order here? Have I lost one, lost the page?
Yeah, we should be on
Page 4, page 5.
page 4. The Corporation of the Township of Municipal Planning Meeting, May 27th, 9:15. So we're just coming into item 10, which is going to
We're
be
on
business.
item 10. We're on item, oh, we missed item 10?
Yeah.
Yes,
And then we got to do the bylaws.
yes.
I can't hear them. What'd they say? Oh, right, okay, sorry. I was ahead of myself. Okay, item 10, business arising from the previous minutes. And that's 21 PED 29, amendment to the conditions of consent application AH 13 2020, Herb and Arindith Thiessen. I got that
Yes.
here too in order.
Through you, Mayor Latchford. Application AH 13 2021 was approved by the Land Division Committee on October 22nd, 2020. And at that time it was approved, and the lot had an area of approximately 0.4 hectares with a width of 45.72 meters and a depth of 88.54 meters. If you'll remember, you probably won't, but I included in this, the severed lot created a retained lot that was kind of L-shaped. And they're proposing to add the land to the rear of the property to the severed lot. It has no bearing really on anything except for the depth of the lot and the overall area. So it would increase the depth of the lot to 117 meters from the previous 88.54 meters that was approved by the Land Division Committee. I'm recommending that the decision be that the conditions be changed by increasing the size of the lot. The only comment received during the review of that application was from the adjacent property owner, who was concerned that the property wasn't going the full depth of the lot. So my recommendation is just that, but increasing the depth of the severed lot created with application AH 1320, application 132020. Sorry, I put 2021 in the recommendation. It should be 2020.
Okay. Thank you. It cleans it up better as well.
It does.
Okay. Any comments from council? Seeing none. Any public comments? None. I'll read the motion. That the conditions of consent approval for AH-13 2020, which conditionally approve the creation of a lot developed in the rural residential. Lot and part of Lot 6, Concession A, Geographic Township of Haldeman, and which was approved by the Land Division Committee on October 22, 2020, be amended by increasing the depth of the severed lot to 117 meters. Could I have a mover, please?
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Councillor Hogg, second by Deputy Mayor Gibson. I'll call for the vote. Deputy Mayor Gibson?
Yay.
Councillor Phillip?
Yay.
Councillor Booth?
Yay.
Councillor Hogg?
Yay.
And myself, so that's carried. Thank you. Now we can go to bylaws, item 11. I shouldn't have left my desk. The first bylaw is 52, 2021. Be it resolved that bylaw number 52, 2021, being a bylaw to amend the comprehensive zoning bylaw number 19, 2019, as amended by the Township of Alnwick Haldeman for Rennie Chute, concession 7, part of lot 24, geographic Alnwick, be read and deemed to be deferred this 27th day of May.
Sorry, excuse me, Mayor Latchford. You during the public meeting, you were deferring a decision on the Rennie Chute,
Yes.
the Rennie Chute bylaw.
Yes.
So the reason we
don't need to do it again.
No, you don't. The reason that the bylaw was included in the package was so that in case you went against staff recommendation, so that you had a bylaw.
Okay, so we can omit that.
That's correct.
So we can do bylaw 53 and 68. Or did I only miss 10?
53 and 68. You're right, Madam Mayor. You're now down to 53, 2021.
Because we didn't make that bylaw. Okay, good. Here goes. Be it resolved that bylaw number 53, 2021, being a bylaw to amend the comprehensive zoning bylaw number 19-2019, as amended of the Township of Alnwick Haldeman for Angela Cook and Kirsty Ann Cook, concession 1, part of lot 10, geographic Alnwick, be read and deemed to be passed this 27th day of May 2021.
I'll make the
Moved by
motion.
Deputy Mayor Gibson, second by Councillor Phillip. Any further comments? I'll
No.
call for the vote. Deputy Mayor Gibson,
Yay.
Councillor Phillip,
Yay.
Councillor Booth,
Yay.
Councillor Hogg,
Yay.
and myself, so that's carried. Bylaw number 68, 2021. Be it resolved that bylaw number 68, 2021, being a bylaw under the provisions of section 38 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13, as amended, to extend the period of time during which bylaw 56, 2020, an interim control bylaw to prohibit the establishment of cannabis production and processing facilities will be in effect be read and deemed to be passed this 27th day of May. I had Mike and Debbie, Deputy Mayor, got the initials.
Yeah,
That's still good?
still good.
Okay. Any further comments? Calling for the vote. Deputy Mayor Gibson,
Yay.
Councillor Philip,
Yay.
Councillor Booth,
Yay.
Councillor Hogg,
Yay.
and myself, so that's carried. Now, item 12. Get these other things out of my way. Okay. Item 12, planning reports. This report again is from Jennifer Current. Read the ministerial zoning orders requests from Lower Trent Conservation. Be it resolved that council report number 2021-PED 28 from Jennifer Current, senior planner, dated May 27th, 21, read ministerial zoning orders requests from Lower Trent Conservation be received and filed. Can I have a mover, please?
Excuse me, sorry.
Comment?
Through you, Mayor Latchford.
Sorry.
The request was that that council authorized staff to circulate Lower Trent Conservation Authority with any requests from the province on the ministerial zoning orders. I believe by passing the resolution as it's written in the agenda package, that it doesn't do what my recommendation is. If that's your intention, that's fine. But if your intention is for staff to circulate the Conservation Authority when we receive, or if we receive, a ministerial zoning order, that resolution would need to be revised.
Can I comment through the mayor?
Yes, Councillor
Thank
Phil.
you. Thank you, through the mayor. Yes, I was actually almost going to word for word comment similar to Jennifer on this one. I do believe that those three bullets at the bottom of page 106 are important. I do believe we need to circulate the Conservation Authority, or at least support the request to do that, so that we can protect the municipality from a quick brush over by the province. And I don't think the request is untoward. Simply reviewing it, they've asked to notify the Conservation Authority of the request of the MZO, and then provided a copy of their request to the Conservation Authority, which I don't think is unreasonable. And then their last request is that to delineate the extent of the regulated area on the site and identify potential risks. That doesn't mean that they can disqualify the MZO's application. It just means that they have made public comment. And I'm the first one that wants to eliminate red tape, but I also want to protect the municipality, and I still feel that the Conservation Authority has a valid role in that process. So I would be putting the recommendation forward that we support those three bullets and not just simply receive and file. That would be my position on that.
My understanding is that the ministry does nothing on this unless it's a request by the municipality. So if the municipality is requesting, and in my opinion, and I've been to enough meetings where I've heard it from other concerned councils and mayors. I think if Lower Trent wants to do this, and with the letter that they've sent to us, they should be sending that on to the province themselves to be part of that. Because there is way too much red tape, and you know, with what's coming, we don't need the Lower Trent to be holding things up and blocking. This would allow what the municipality wants, and if it's necessary, if it were necessary for Lower Trent to comment, we would ask them that, but not on every application or everything that we put in, and it would affect us very little. I'm not in favor. We haven't got that request from Ganaraska, and the province has made these changes for a reason. Too much interference by some of the conservation authorities is the biggest one. So I don't know how anybody else feels about it, but that's the way I feel about it after listening and having issues. Councillor Booth?
As a member of the GRCA, I wasn't able to attend the last meeting, so I don't know whether this came out, but I would agree with Councillor Mike. I think I would support it. It's just talking about that the municipal staff shall notify them of the request. So it's just, to me, it looks like it's just at least telling them and notifying them about it. So it doesn't say anything about them refusing it or having the power to do that with the minister's order. So I would support it. I mean, I agree with Mike. I'd like to cut some red tape, and have heard a lot of negative things about some of the powers that the conservation authorities have. But I think this is just respectfully at least notifying them of the request and providing a copy of the request to the conservation authority.
Any further comments? Deputy Mayor Gibson?
Yeah, I would agree with Mayor Latchford. I think, you know, it creates some additional burden on the municipality, and I think it's a lot of power to give over to the conservation authority to be involved in that. And you know, we seek out their recommendation when necessary.
And I would think that if we were doing anything, they would already previously have been involved. So if we were to make this request to the province, then it's the municipality making the request. And I still believe that, you know, the province has cut some of the things that the conservation authority has taken on over the years, and this is one of them. And I still believe that if the conservation authorities want to be part of this, they should be lobbying the province, not going through the municipalities to bring it back. Any other comments? No other comments. So I'll have to have a motion on item 12.
Isn't there a motion already to receive and file?
Well, it was to receive and file, but then
Yeah.
Jennifer said it needs, that's not what it meant. what I said. So if you receive and file it, they'll be notified. Right,
No.
Jennifer?
No,
No,
Okay,
if it's received and filed, that means you read the report, but you did not necessarily endorse the recommendation contained in the report.
okay, so that means they're not part of it
that's right.
that went in. If there was a ministerial order, they would be exempt from it.
We don't support it. If it's a receive and file, then then council does not support it. It just gets filed.
Yes,
So that's the motion on the floor. So we need someone to move it and second it.
that's right. I need a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Gibson,
I'll make a motion to receive and file.
I have a second.
I'll second that.
Councillor Hogg. Any further comments from council?
Could we have a recorded vote on that, please, Mayor?
Yes. Susan will set that up. Request for a recorded vote, Susan?
Request for a recorded vote. Councillor Hogg,
I think
Nay.
it should go, Sherry made the motion.
oh,
so-
sorry.
So it goes by
okay.
Okay,
Sherry.
so Deputy Mayor Gibson,
Yeah, yay.
Mayor Latchford,
Yay?
Councillor Hogg,
Yay.
Councillor Fleet,
Nay.
nay. And Councillor Booth,
Nay.
So the motion is carried by recorded vote, 3-2. Announcements and notice of motions, planning related. I think it's important, Jennifer, if we can keep out front to the residents in our municipality about the Northumberland County's official plan update, July 2022. If that can, be on the website, whatever, so people are constantly reminded about that, because that's going to bring in some significant changes across the county. People may not be aware that their zonings can be changed. So I'd just like to keep that information out front, and maybe even get the map on our website.
Sorry, through you, Mayor Latchford. You would like a copy or a sort of a banner or a notice for the meeting?
For the meetings that are going to be the public meetings for the county, the ones that are going to come up, because
Okay.
that date is just a little over a year away. So it's important to get that information out to our residents, I think.
Okay.
And I agree with you. That's the one thing that I wanted to speak about. And the other thing is the 3-year rule. I agree with you on that needs to be eliminated as soon as possible. Do you have to find the previous in order to rescind it?
Sorry, through you, Mayor Latchford. That is an official plan policy, and it will have to take place through an official plan amendment.
Okay, do you know how it got there?
Well, your official plan was adopted in, I don't know, 2015. I don't know. I do know that it wasn't uncommon in older official plans to have requirement for somebody to have owned a property for X number of years before they could sever it, but usually that had to do with that type of policy was usually put in place before we had a policy set that said that you were only allowed X number of severances from a property as it existed in 1990. Now we've got a drop dead date, say, of January 1st, 1990. You can have 2 severances from a property that's less than 38 hectares as it existed in 1990. So really, from a planning perspective, it doesn't matter whether you've owned that property for 5 years, 1 year, or 35 years.
Agree.
But it used to be that you were allowed a severance every X number of years.
Yes,
And
I've heard
that's
that too.
why they had, you have to own, it was to prevent flipping. But with the other policy that we have in place now, it doesn't make sense.
No.
So,
Well, I'll give a little history of it because it goes back, if you have to look things up, to probably the early 80s, late 70s. And at that time, there were many rural councils who didn't want development. So it was one of the things that was put in place by councils to deter development. And I know that there was one township that decided to do that first on the west end, and then Haldeman Council decided to do it. So, and what they also did with this, in their plan to stop development, they would only allow 8 severances a year. And at one time in Haldeman in the mid 80s, there was 400 applications and only 8 a year were being passed. So that changed over the years as well, but the barriers to it now and those years really has put this council a little behind, or not the council, the township, because the development wasn't done. And, you know, people want so many things now that we don't have the property tax base to provide all that we would like to, or that other rural municipalities are providing. So it causes financial difficulties now. And, you know, we need development. We need it in the right places. The rural zoning qualifies. And that's one of my major concerns with the new updated official plan, is the taking of the rural lands and putting them into agriculture without people knowing, and they're going to think they are eligible for severance and find out they're not. So I'm happy that we're going to get rid of that. We may only have less than a year by the time that's done for people to realize they can apply. And it's good. I remember a friend of mine waited 4 years before they could before they were allowed to apply for a severance with the list that was in this township. So it wasn't fair, because other municipalities surrounding Haldeman were allowing severance in the same zonings, in the same circumstances, but it was a decision of the council of the day. So this will modernize us a little bit, hopefully.
yeah, you'll find I don't spend a lot of time worrying about how long a person has owned a property.
No, thankfully.
If they meet everything else.
Yeah, I know you don't. And I agree with you. So I just wanted to bring that forward, because I just think it's important that be dropped, gotten rid of. That's all I have for today. Deputy Mayor Gibson.
Thank you. I don't have any planning announcements, and unfortunately, I'm about 15 minutes overdue for a meeting that I was scheduled on. So if you don't mind, I will exit the meeting at this point.
Okay. See you
All right.
later.
Thank you, everyone.
Hi, Sherry.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Counselor Phillip?
I have no, nothing to add, no announcements at this time. Thank you.
Counselor Booth? Nothing? Counselor Hogg? Nothing yet.
Sorry, I have nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. This has been one of the longer meetings we have had in planning for a while. Okay, item 14, be bylaw number 69, 2021, be it resolved that bylaw number 69-2021, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the municipal planning meeting of Thursday, May 27th, 2021, be read and deemed to be approved this 27th day of May, 2021. Have a mover, please. Councillor Booth, second. Councillor Hogg, all in favor? Carried. And the adjournment, be it resolved that the municipal planning meeting be adjourned at 12:17 p.m. Okay, have a mover, please.
I can move that, Councillor Phillip.
Councillor Phillip, second by Councillor Booth. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Susan. You did a good job first time round on your own.
Thank you very much.
We all learned
Thank you.
something at every one of these meetings.
I've learned a lot today.
That's why I
Thank you.
like planning.
Thank you, Mayor Latchford.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer, for all your work.
Thank
Good
you.
report.
Have a good day.
All
Bye,
right,
everybody.
bye-bye.
Hit the end button.
At the end.
Actually, stop the recording if you can. Stop. Stop. Good. Now go and end the stream. End. And then end the meeting.